Welcome, everyone, to the ComedySportz Podcast, starring your host, Christine Rollo Capriolo. Today, all the way from the center of the country, Mama Mia Roberts!
Hey, everybody, welcome to today's ComedySportz Podcast. I'm Christine Rollo Capriolo. I am so over the moon excited to have the co-founder from the Indianapolis ComedySportz team, Miss Mia Roberts. Mia, thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
It is so exciting to sit down with you and talk to you about your experience in comedy sports.
Okay, I'm excited too.
Yay! Tell me, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Danville, Indiana, and raised in Hendricks County, Indiana, mostly. And just moved a few miles east to Indianapolis as a young adult. And I've been in Indianapolis all my adult life.
Ever since.
Yeah.
What did you want to be when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to make people laugh. I wanted to be an actress, but I wanted to be, always wanted to be the wacky sidekick.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Were you the funny kid?
I think I was. I think that's what people have told me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so like voted most funny would be you.
Yeah, we never had any of those votes. Although my senior year of high school, I was voted most likely to be a guest on Johnny Carson.
Okay.
I'm aging myself.
That's okay. I remember old Johnny Carson. That's awesome. So somewhere along the way, you were in theater. Did you go to college and study theater?
No, I didn't. I just started doing theater in high school.
Okay.
Because I loved it. And in 1985, my theater teacher at Plainfield High School, Mr. Kurt Baker, introduced us to improv.
Oh, okay.
And I was hooked. I just thought that was amazing. Now, I didn't do improv again until, I was 20.
Okay.
But that's where, that was my first experience with improv. And then I just did community theater through high school.
Okay.
And as a young adult. And then when I finally, as an adult, moved to Indianapolis, I did David Mamet's Sexual Perversity in Chicago. They did a production of Sexual Perversity in Chicago along with his Duck Variations.
Okay.
And I was in Sexual Perversity in Chicago, and my partner, Edward Trout, was in the Duck Variations, and that's where Ed and I met.
Okay.
And there was a small group of us, and we thought we were really funny.
Yeah.
And they started an improv group while I got married and got pregnant.
Okay. Ed Trout started the improv group?
Ed Trout and Ray Lutz and Lynn Berger, who ended up also being my partner in ComedySportz. They started a group that was half sketch, half improv called Below the Belt.
Okay.
And when my daughter turned about 9 months old, I needed to get out of the house.
Heck yeah, I've been there.
And and Ed said, come join us in this improv group.
Okay.
And I did, and that's where it all started for us.
Oh, that's excellent. It was called Below the Belt.
Yes.
Was it R-rated?
It was R-rated.
Okay.
So we did shows late night after we performed at a place called Theater on the Square. It was in Fountain Square in Indianapolis.
Okay.
And they would do a main stage production, and we would go on after that.
Okay.
So we rehearsed in living rooms, clubhouses, wherever we could. And we would write sketches.
So you're doing improv and sketches?
We were doing improv and sketch at the time.
Okay.
So we would write sketches, and then we would sprinkle in some improv games.
Yeah.
And it was pretty political. It was mostly about Indianapolis politics.
Oh, okay.
And there was foul language. It was dirty, all that type of stuff.
Okay.
So it was a late night show.
Okay, so you were already doing improv. Then how does ComedySportz come into your mind? Where does that come from? How did you get introduced to that?
Yeah, so we had an audition for Below the Belt.
Okay.
And we were the only comedy thing in town at the time.
Okay.
We had several people audition, and one of the standouts that joined our group was Randy Smock.
Okay.
And he had played ComedySportz in Chicago. So we did about 6 months worth of shows, and Randy said, you need to come up to Chicago and see ComedySportz. I think you would really like this show.
Yeah.
And so we all drove up to Chicago and watched ComedySportz and immediately fell in love with it.
Was that the first time you'd heard of it?
Yeah, so we had never heard of ComedySportz.
Okay.
And of course, we didn't have the internet back then.
Right. Yeah, I know, right? To not know about it was...
Right. So we didn't know about it. And we were going through a transition period anyway.
Okay.
We had just realized around that time that the member of our group who was taking care of our finances had stolen quite a bit of money from us.
Oh.
It was just a great time to make a transition.
Okay.
And I had a daughter who was, at that time, I'd had 2 kids. So I had 2 babies. And the idea of doing a family-friendly or all-ages show was very appealing to me. And it was to everyone else, too. It just looked like a really more marketable product.
Sure.
And a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And a lot less work. No sketch writing.
Yes, no sketch writing, all
which
improv.
Is fun, but a lot of work. And so it was just really appealing. And so Randy got the ball rolling.
Okay.
He called Dick Chudnow.
Yeah.
And we started playing comedy sports. And Randy was the artistic director. He knew all the improv games. We had no idea there were thousands of improv games. We'd been playing maybe 20.
So you were playing games in your improv show already?
Yeah, we were.
Okay.
But not the team format. No,
right.
No winners, no losers.
Okay.
That type of thing. And then 3 months into it, Randy lets us know that his wife got a job out of town and he was moving. And so he left it to us.
Okay. So it's at this point you, Ed Trout, and Lynn Berger.
And Randy Smock.
And Randy Smock.
And Dave Ruark.
Okay.
And Ryan Logan.
Okay. And you've now adopted the comedy sports format for your shows.
Right.
What was appealing about that specifically as opposed to the improv you were doing?
I think mostly the idea that we could do a show at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock p.m. and not at 11 p.m. and be done at 2 a.m.
Right.
And knowing that this was going to be a long game. And I had 2 children that I knew I would want to bring with me to the theater. And it was something that we could do on our own. We wanted to own our own theater. We wanted to manage our own theater. Okay. And we wanted to make some money.
Yeah. Yeah, were you in your own space at this point?
We were not.
Okay.
We were performing at this place, this wonderful theater in Indianapolis. It was called Theater on the Square. And the gentleman, the artistic director there and the manager let us come in and play after their main stage shows.
Okay.
We didn't have a lot of people who were interested in what we were doing. As I was looking for a venue for us at the start, I had people tell me this wouldn't last 6 months. This was not something that was sustainable.
Okay.
And so we finally, Ryan Logan, who was a part of our group and who was also my ex-husband.
Oh, wah, wah.
I know. His father owned kind of a small little strip mall and let us lease a part of the space.
Okay.
It had been a salon. So we removed the sinks and we put some plastic chairs in.
Okay.
It was in not a great part of town, so we were a destination location.
Okay, yes.
If you weren't going to be there unless you were coming to see us.
Yeah.
We put some plastic chairs up, we made a stage, and we started performing. And I think we charged $5 a ticket.
Okay.
And we were there for about 3 years. Ryan and I got divorced. He left the group.
Wow.
And so then it was just Dave Ruark and Lynn Berger and Ed Trout and myself.
Okay.
And the downtown Indianapolis was being revitalized.
Yes.
There was a space down there that Ed had performed in. They did dinner theater.
Okay.
And they closed. And Ed said, let's go see if we can get that space.
Yeah.
And we did.
Nice.
And so it was kind of a ghost town. Again, we were still in a destination location on Mass Avenue in Indianapolis, but we had heard that it was up and coming and they were going to make it great.
Yeah.
And they did.
Right.
And we've been there since 1999.
Excellent.
And we are very proud of the fact that we helped revitalize the area.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, how did you start to get more people performing with your troupe?
Right. Tryouts. Yeah. So we had, back then we called them auditions.
Right.
The better we became known in the theater community, the more interested performers were in improv and comedy. And so we would have auditions. And I mean, at first, there were only like 10 of us. So you played every match. You were in every show.
Sure.
Everyone was a ref. Everyone was a captain. We just all knew all the parts.
Right.
And we got a pretty good following. before moving to Mass Avenue. And once we moved to Mass Avenue, that was kind of a game changer for us. And especially performers that knew that we paid our players because community theater, we had one repertory theater and we had one equity house. But otherwise, you weren't getting paid to do any theater. And I think, and we paid very little, but I think that was appealing to people. And we got, we had maybe 20 people in the group, which was huge for us.
Sure. What year are we talking about now?
1999.
So 1999, about 20 people after tryouts, auditions. And you'd been to Chicago ComedySportz. Did you ever come up to Milwaukee ComedySportz?
We did. In 94 was our first tournament.
Okay.
93 or 94. And that's when, tournament was small.
Right. And now it's like ginormous.
Right.
What do you notice either then or now? What makes Indianapolis different than other cities in ComedySportz?
Well, I think the fact that we've been able to maintain our space for as long as we have is a huge plus. A lot of times, you sign a 2-year lease and then you're out and you have to go find another space and find another space. ComedySportz Indianapolis has only had really 2 spaces.
That's amazing.
So in 26 years, that's been pretty great.
That's amazing.
And it's been a lot of luck with the space and, negotiating rent and all that stuff.
Right. Now, was this your full-time gig?
It was for a little while. Ed Trout, I worked there full-time when we moved down to Mass Avenue.
Okay.
And then got to the point where I called Ed and said, okay, it's time for you to come and work here now too.
Yeah.
And we worked in the office together for 2 years.
Okay.
And then 9/11 happened.
Oh, boy.
And Ed and I actually sat in a very small office that we made in the corner of the theater. And we sat back to back and we flipped through the phone book and made cold calls trying to sell our show.
Really?
Yeah. And then 9/11 happened and we just couldn't call that day and try to sell comedy.
Right.
And that was a very difficult period, I think, for everyone.
Oh, it changed the world.
It did.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so then Ed stayed. And I went and got a job. I have a paralegal degree, so I went to a law firm and got a job.
Okay.
And Ed stayed.
But were you still performing?
Yeah.
On the weekend? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We only had a stable of about 20 people, so we were all performing all the time.
Okay.
Just not working in the office full time anymore.
Okay, I see. But is he still?
Oh, yeah. Ed is still part owner of ComedySportz Indianapolis, and he still works there full time.
And now, somewhere along the way, was it 2016, you sold your portion of the business?
Lynn Berger and I decided it was for different reasons. It was time to sell our shares. Me personally, I felt like I had done all I could do to move things forward. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2004. I've had cancer several times.
What?
And I just couldn't be present and help move things forward.
Okay.
Lynn had always had a full-time job.
Okay.
So she had 2 full-time jobs. She took care of the finances for ComedySportz for the whole time we owned it up to 2016. So she was tired of having 2 full-time jobs.
Right.
And we're getting older. So it's time for some young people to come in and take charge. Ed wasn't ready at that time.
Right.
So he stayed.
But you're still involved. You still perform.
Still perform, still teach the implied improv, still teach workshops. It is a passion. It is in you. And I think you've been with this company for a really long time. It's just something that I'm never going to do.
Well, how has it changed your life? You've been through cancer. You've been through MS. And then you've got this comedy thing as a constant.
It has been.
I'm assuming
it's been a saving grace. I mean, when you have, and now we have, I think, 60 people on our roster.
Okay.
When you go someplace one night a week where the focus is community, comedy, laughing, it definitely helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's something that it's very rare that not a lot of people have.
Right.
And when you do improv together for so long, you very much become a family. Absolutely. And so you have a lot of support.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I think it's changed me for the better. Yeah. Absolutely. I raised 2 children there.
Do they do it?
They don't.
No.
I thought for sure they would.
Right.
And there are other comedy sports owners in the league whose kids have come up. But they lived there for a long time, and I think they thought, well, I'm done with this now.
Right.
And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I'm glad neither of my children wanted to be an actor or in comedy. It's a tough gig.
It is.
It's a lot of rejection.
Yes.
You don't want that for your kids.
My little guy, I have a 10-year-old son, and he's done Comedy Sports Kids Camp for the past couple of years.
Yes.
And he loves it. Well, he sees mommy and daddy do it.
Yes.
You know, that's where I met my husband. And so he sees us down there, and he's tried it, and he loves it. And when I took off for quite a while, had kids and, you know, doing the mama thing. And I started working my way back in and doing shows. And my son Nelson said to me the time I was coming back, my first show back, he said, Mommy, do you know how to play What Are You Doing? So yeah, I think I remember that. He was like, okay, if you get nervous, Mommy, just look at me in the crowd. I'll be there.
That's so sweet.
Oh, you were so sweet.
Yeah, my kids sat through, I don't know, 1,000 matches.
Oh, for sure.
So
Absolutely.
It's a lot.
Yeah, our kids like to sit in the judge's booth. You know, they feel special.
Absolutely.
In Milwaukee, it's kind of on stage, the judge's booth, so he feels really important, and he knows everybody, and yeah, it's super cute. Super cute. So I want to hear about Women's Weekend at the Gal Pal Comedy Fest that you do in Indianapolis.
Yes, I want to tell you about it. So one of the female players who joined us around, I don't know when she joined us, 15, 16 years ago. Her name is Claire Wiltshire, and she worked in the office.
Okay.
And one day she said, you know, I want to do improv with just women. I want to start a show and just improvise with women. And I said, I do too. That would be fun. Can we do it together?
Yeah.
And she said, yes.
Awesome.
So we started the Gal Pal Comedy Festival. And there are a couple of other improv groups in Indianapolis. I think maybe 3 or 4 more now.
Okay.
So we invited any woman who does professional improv to come and play every Friday night in March for the late show at ComedySportz.
Okay.
And it's all women. And we have this wonderful woman named Paige Scott who plays keyboards.
Okay.
And she's incredibly talented. She writes musicals, things like that. But she really understood how to play for us while you're improvising. I think that's a skill that not every
absolutely
musician has.
Yes.
So we have her, and we have about 20 to 30 women who do improv in Indianapolis who sign up, and it's just women having a ton of fun for an hour and a half on Friday nights in March. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. Well, now when you started Indianapolis and it was you, Ed, and Lynn, so it's 2 women and 1 guy, was that rare, do you think?
I think it was. I think that when I went to my first Comedy Sports Managers meeting in 1993 or 4, I think there were just 2 women in the room, or 3.
Yeah.
One was Diana Delaney from ComedySportz Houston.
Okay.
Myself, and someone representing Milwaukee. And it wasn't Dick Chudnow at the time. There was another woman, but we were in a room full of men.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And how does that change your thinking when you're going into this to have fun and to make people laugh, and then you're in a room full of men? Was it different? Were you singled out because you're a woman? Did you feel any differences?
No, I didn't feel singled out at all.
Okay.
It was very new to most of the people who were in the room as well. Nobody had been doing it for a really long time.
Well, right, yeah.
And it was just a learning process.
Okay.
It was a learning experience. Because in that first meeting, I think I remember someone asking, who has a computer at home? And 2 people raised their hands. So this was, I don't even know if we had email at the time. So it was a different time.
Sure, definitely.
You know, but back then, what we really did was we tried to help each other market this thing.
Yes.
That people didn't know what it was. You couldn't go to the internet and look up comedy.
Right.
We had to make people aware of what we did by word of mouth. So it was pretty supportive, and still is. But
Yeah.
I think, especially back then, it was pretty supportive. We all just wanted each other to be successful.
Right. Well, then what's so intriguing then for you about doing a women's weekend, about playing with just female comedians?
Because you play differently when it's just women.
Talk about that.
You
What
just
do you mean?
I think from my experience and watching people that I would watch play comedy sports with men, I think sometimes women are a little more timid, a little more intimidated. Not all the time, and not all women.
Right.
But the very first Gal Pal Comedy Festival evening that we did, Claire and I looked at each other afterward and said, it was amazing. We'd never seen some of these women play as loudly and as boldly as they did when it was just us.
Interesting.
And it was a different atmosphere in the room. Not because men bring us down or because anything. It was just, I think, more freeing for some people for whatever reason.
Right.
And I don't know. It was just different.
Yeah.
It just was and has been for the last 7 years.
Okay.
I enjoy playing comedy sports, doing long form with men. I enjoy it very much. There's something slightly magical about a group of women
Right.
playing together. You can talk about your period. You can
I have one of those too.
you can talk about breastfeeding.
Right.
There are different subjects that you can relate to with one another that you just can't with a man.
Sure.
And the Gal Pal Comedy Festival is a late night show.
Okay.
And it is rated R.
Okay.
And so you can get into some subjects that you just wouldn't ordinarily with a man.
Sure.
And I think that feels very freeing.
Now, how was your audience? Was the audience mostly women or was it a mixed?
No, it was mixed. And the men who play comedy sports were there being very supportive.
Awesome.
And we have great crowds. We have a following now. People really look forward to it. Those of us who are in the Gal Pal Comedy Festival, we call it the most wonderful time of the year.
Okay.
And because it's just fun. It's a different type of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Now, have you gotten good feedback from the audience? You said you have a following now.
Yes, we get great feedback.
They love
We get
it.
great feedback. When you play comedy sports, I can't tell you how many times in Indianapolis we high five our audience on the way out.
Okay.
And even though we have a lot of women and more now playing than ever, you still get those people who are leaving and high fiving you, and they grab your hand and say, "You were really funny." Like, I can't believe a woman was so funny.
Yeah, I get that
Still
too.
today.
Yes, it's like, hello.
It's like, thank you.
Right, I think.
What's up with that?
Yes.
Yeah, we're funny. We're very
We can
funny.
be every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So the Women's Weekend came about, which was also Claire Wilcher's idea. She said, I think that the last weekend of the Gal Pal Comedy Festival, we should invite comedy sports women from all over.
Excellent.
And do comedy sports matches with just women.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, we absolutely should. And so we did.
Yeah.
So we had the first Women's Weekend. We had, I think, 15 ladies come in.
Okay.
And it was just all women in all the matches. We had women in the sound booth. We had women
Right.
at the door taking tickets. And it was just a really fun experience. And then we did workshops with just women.
Mm-hmm.
We would do lunch and sit and talk about, about being a woman in this male-dominated industry, because it still is.
Yes.
It still is.
Wow. That sounds amazing. And I'm assuming you got amazing feedback from the other female comedy sports players from all over.
We've gotten great feedback. Everyone has really enjoyed it.
Oh, I love that idea. I think it's great. And you're continuing to do it.
We are continuing it. Indianapolis did it for the last 3 years.
Okay.
And this year we handed it off to Lana Green, who just opened Comedy Sports Las Vegas.
Okay. So might it start traveling now? Or
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. We think it's something, we want to share it. We would
Yeah.
like every city to be able to host it. It's fun to go to different cities and play, as you
Absolutely.
know.
Yes.
When you go to championship in different
Right.
cities, it's the same, but it's different.
Yeah.
And you get to meet all of these people who do the same thing and love and are passionate about the same thing that you are.
Absolutely.
It's rare. So
Yeah. So when you go to championship, for people listening, that's when a bunch of comedy sports performers get together all over the country and meet up and perform in shows together and against each other. What have you learned at championship from other cities? What's something you take home with you and you're like, hey, let's try that? Is there something that's...
Oh, gosh, all types of things. The marketing. How do they market their city? How do they play different games? We're all playing the same named games, but some people play them differently.
Absolutely. Even within the same city, refs will explain it different. You're like, oh, wait, whose rules are we playing by today?
Right.
Yeah.
Watching the referee. Like, oh, there's some bits in there that I really want to take home.
Sure.
The workshops are what are really beneficial, I think, to going to championship.
Yeah.
You take a workshop from someone and then you can take that home and teach it to your players.
Right.
Huge benefits from everyone getting together.
Yes. Now, what are your favorite games to play?
I love blind line.
Yeah.
I love a good forward reverse.
I love
I'm
forward
very
reverse.
old school.
Yeah.
I like a shoulda said.
I should have said? Explain that one.
Oh, I think people call it something else. New choice.
Oh, okay, new choice.
New choice.
Okay.
I like any musical game, even though I can't sing.
Do you guys play musical games in Indianapolis?
Yeah.
That's something Milwaukee doesn't do much.
Oh, we have a fantastic keyboardist.
Oh, I wish we still did.
Musician. We have a couple, actually. We have Robert Bulliard and we have Anna Tierman. Paige Scott, who I told you does the Gal Pal Comedy Festival with us. It's lovely when you have somebody on keys and you get to play those games.
Yes, that's incredible. Years back, I can't remember which tournament it was, which championship it was, but I remember it was in Milwaukee, and I remember going and watching a city, maybe it was your city, doing just musical game after musical game.
We love them.
Maybe it was. And I remember turning to some people in Milwaukee and being like, what the hell? We don't do any of this. We haven't had someone on keys in years.
And we didn't at first have anyone on keys. We still played the musical games.
Did you?
Absolutely.
That's
we just
great.
sang a cappella. It was fantastic.
I love it. Do you ever think your city or your performers get into a rut and you need to try something new?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
When you've been doing this for this long, it ebbs and flows. You have your ups and downs, because when you do 4 comedy sports matches a weekend for 6 months, you get to the point where you need a weekend off.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So,
and do you find you're playing the same games over and over? Do you ever just throw something in?
For sure,
fun?
at first. And it was going to what we used to call tournament, that we now call championship, learning new games. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Like I said, when we first started, we had maybe 20 games.
Right.
And then we went and learned all of this new stuff. And you came back every year really refreshed and ready to just, you just hit the ground running with all of this new stuff after tournament or championship.
Years ago, we had someone on keys, Esther, and she would play, and it would be awesome. But it's been a long time.
It adds a lot to the show.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. Even just the background music that's not, just putting up on a CD or something.
Right.
That's a huge...
And we do that.
Sure.
We do that when we don't have anyone on keys. You've got the, your standard 7-8 tracks that you play for a musical game.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you're in town this weekend for Chud Nation.
Yes.
You're supporting Dick and Jen's new foundation.
Absolutely.
And it's got to be amazing to see a lot of old friends.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, especially since I don't own the business any longer and I don't go to managers' meetings and all those people that I spent time with for 20 plus years, and you see those faces. It's a lot of fun.
It's an amazing family. Right?
It is, absolutely. And it is a family.
It is. It feels so good. I want to play a couple games with you before we take off. This has been amazing. I want you to pick. I've got a pile of papers here, and just pick 2 out of that whole pile there. We got some comedy sports games on here. And I want you to tell us about the 2 games. And if you don't know any of them, just throw it back and get another one.
What are you doing?
No,
Do we want to play that?
I think I know that one. Okay. And tell me which one you'd rather play.
Okay. Was What Are You Doing the hardest game to learn at first? Because it was for us.
Was it?
Well, aside from 5 things.
I remember the only hardest part for some people was they'd always answer with, and do that hesitation.
Yes.
Yeah. And so getting people to stop saying,
I'm right.
cooking a chicken.
What are you doing in soap opera?
Tell me about those two. Which one would you rather play if you had to play in the show right now?
Okay, this is the thing that I always say when anyone wants to start our match with what are you doing?
Yeah.
I say that is not a game, that is an exercise.
Oh, you don't play it in the show?
No, yes, we do,
Oh, okay.
because not everyone agrees with me.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll play it. So what are you doing? Because I've reffed 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So explaining the game should be easy. So you want me to explain it like?
Sure. Yeah. Explain it.
Yeah. So one person is up from each team.
Yeah.
We get a suggestion from the audience like bobsledding or something, and that's the topic. And one player asks the other, what are you doing? And they start a motion.
Right.
And the player says, what are you doing? And they have to say something other than what they are actually doing.
Got it. Right.
And then they start doing that action. And then the other player asks, what are you doing?
Right.
And they have to say something other than what they're actually doing. And it goes back and forth until someone messes up.
Very nice, referee Mia.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
It's a rotation game. The last person left standing will gain 5 points for their team for that round.
Excellent. What's the other game you picked
Okay,
there?
so soap opera, you get a topic. Usually, what's a reason for a family argument or something like that?
Let's see. Somebody did not clean their room for company.
Right, that's horrible. And so that would be the topic. That would be the basis of the scene. So you would start a scene very much like, very dramatic, like a soap opera. And anytime you would put your hand up to your head or fist on your chin, the person in the sound booth would read your inner thoughts.
Oh, interesting.
And that would move the scene forward.
Oh, see, that's totally different.
There are several
Yeah.
different ways to play it.
I love that.
But
Okay.
that's how we played it for a very long time.
Yeah, I love it. So I remember stepping into the box and saying your own inner thoughts.
And we do that
You've
too.
done that too?
You could do that
Interesting.
too, stepping into the box and saying your thoughts.
I love how different cities or different people in the same city, like I said,
Yeah.
will have different ways of playing a
Absolutely.
game.
Absolutely. Keeps things fresh
Absolutely.
and fun. And when you have people who come back time and time again to watch your show, which most cities do.
Oh, absolutely.
People see it and they love it.
Yes.
And so they come back because they know it's never the same thing twice.
Yes.
And you have people ask that all the time. Now, you really didn't
You didn't know.
You didn't plan any of this? No, we didn't, ma'am.
I swear.
We did not. So, yeah, it keeps things fresh. So your audiences that come back time and time again see you change things up and they love it.
Yeah. Is there a game you really don't like that you wouldn't want to play?
I am terrible at most, aside from forward reverse, when you have to remember something like Crazy Quest or something like that, where you have to remember a lot of details. I'm not in love with that.
Has your memory gotten worse as you've gotten older? Because mine has. Mine's
Yes,
terrible.
It's terrible.
Yes.
And you're like, is this menopause? Is this the MS eating my brain? What's happening?
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a lot. But no, it's getting older.
Yes, it is.
You're just, playing now at 51 is very different than playing when I was 22.
Oh, for sure.
23.
Oh my God. I used to be able to be a great guesser.
Yes, I
in
was
like
too.
sideline debate, six
Yes.
things, whatever. And now when I've come back and tried it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't remember any of this. I can't. And since I've had babies, I'll notice I pee a little when I laugh on stage. And I never did that in my 20s.
Right?
So things change. You're right. The memory, the pee.
It is different. Your bones get more rickety. I mean, you're just not as fast.
Oh my God.
And this is something that you have to do consistently in order to
Yes.
stay good at it.
Oh, absolutely.
I had to bow out for a couple of years with illness and thinking, oh, I'm ready to come back. I'm going to jump up there and play with everybody. No, you have to practice this art form
Right.
to get good at it.
Do you guys hold practices in Indianapolis?
We do every Wednesday night from 7 to 9:30.
Okay.
And people ask, what are you doing? What do you mean you practice it? I thought it was completely improvised. We practice the skills that you need in order to do the work,
Yeah.
just like anything else.
Right.
We play games, the rhyming games. We practice music. There's a lot that goes into it
Right.
that people don't realize.
Oh, absolutely. What's
Yeah.
something you think the crowd has no clue about?
Well, I think they have no clue about what improv really is, that we really are making everything up on the spot.
On the spot, yeah.
The fact that that's been asked so many times, especially 5 things, people cannot believe that in Indianapolis, we've got a lot of players who've been playing for a long time, and we're very good at 5 things.
Yeah.
And lots of times we get all 5 things.
Right,
and people are absolutely astonished by it. So I think that's one of the things. If people don't understand also, it's a real business. Mm-hmm. It's funny. It's a funny business. It's a business like anything else.
Right.
Because you come in and you have a great time and it's a lot of fun and you have popcorn and Coke and a pizza, and they don't realize that, oh, we kind of own a restaurant here.
Right.
So in order for us to be able to sell beer and wine at ComedySportz in the state of Indiana, you have to provide a lot of food in order to do that.
Okay.
We had a lot of people in the first couple of years say, well, if I could have a beer when I was there. And so we opened a restaurant because you've got to give the people what they want, right? It is a small restaurant. So we have a kitchen.
Sure.
And it's a business and it takes a lot of people to run it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I think people don't realize that, the work that it really takes to make that place run and to keep it open for 27 years.
Right. That's an amazing feat. You've got to be so proud of everything you've
We
done.
are. We are incredibly proud. And it's taken, this group of 50, 60 people that we have to continue to do it.
Right. What do you think you would have done if you did not get involved with ComedySportz?
I can't even imagine.
No?
It's been my entire adult life.
Yeah.
I probably would have done other theater, scripted theater, I guess. Wouldn't have owned a business.
No.
I can't imagine. This was a hobby at first that turned into a really legitimate business pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And we weren't business people. We were actors who wanted to have a theater. So it was a huge learning process up to the day that I sold it.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. You are such a huge part of the ComedySportz history and the ComedySportz family.
Thanks. I think Indianapolis,
wonderful.
I think we have a good spot in the
sounds
history.
Amazing. I'd love to get down there and check it out.
Well, we would love to have you.
Go on, Mia. Mia, what is your ComedySportz nickname?
I'm Mama Mia Lee Roberts.
Mama Mia Lee Roberts. Mm-hmm. Where did that come from?
That was the nickname that my uncles gave me when I was a child. They mostly called me Mama. And so
it just stuck since you were a kid.
It just kind of stuck.
I love it. All right, I got one more game for you.
Okay.
You're going to pull out a card here. I don't care which color you do. And you're going to ask yourself the question, would you rather...
Oh, my gosh, my eyeglasses.
Oh, no. I'll read it for you.
Yeah,
Pick a color. Yellow, pink, purple, blue, pink. Okay. Would you rather be a woman with men's legs, no shaving, or a man with women's arms? That's not very fun.
I think it's kind of fun.
You think so?
I'd have to go with the hairy legs. How freeing would that be?
That's me all winter and most of the summer.
So I kind of am that.
I was going to say this really
for half the year.
Right.
I think a man with women's arms would also be lovely.
That would be.
I could get on board with either of those.
Okay. I'm going to give you one more.
Okay.
Would you rather be gored to death by a bull or squeezed to death by an anaconda?
Let's just go with the bull. Let's get it over with very quickly.
With.
I think it would be a shock at first, and then you would bleed out very quickly. So, yeah, the squeezing, that could take a while.
That could take a really long time.
That could involve real terror.
It could be. With the snake looking at you?
Yeah. So I'm going with the bull.
Going with the bull. Mm-hmm. Mia, you have been awesome. I'm so glad.
You are.
Yeah,
You're awesome.
Stop it. I don't know.
No,
I'm gonna go to this women's weekend sometime, and we're going to rock that stage.
We will.
Super funny.
Absolutely. We'll have a blast.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, Mia. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
The ComedySportz Podcast is produced and engineered by Kyle Hanneken. Our announcer is Mr. PJ Rockwell. Feel free to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Comments and inquiries can be sent to the ComedySportz Podcast at gmail.com. Created and hosted by me, Christine Rollo Capriolo. See you next time.
The ComedySportz Podcast is an independent production made by CSz players. The views and opinions expressed by the podcast host and any guests are their own and do not represent the views and opinions of any CSz location or CSz Worldwide. Vocabulary used by the host and guests is not necessarily representative of the CSz brand.